He walked into the dealership wearing faded jeans and a simple white t-shirt, where rows of million-dollar cars gleamed under perfectly aligned spotlights. The air smelled of leather and polished metal, but to him it felt oppressively sterile. He approached the reception counter with measured steps and said, "Hi, I wanted to ask about the luxury McLaren parked outside." The senior salesman behind the desk, Blake Thompson, glanced at his white t-shirt, then at his scuffed sneakers. He snorted, partly to himself, partly to his junior colleague. "I think you're in the wrong place, sir," he said, his voice laced with condescension. "These cars start at $300,000. This isn't a sightseeing tour." He waved a dismissive hand toward the exit and summoned 2 security guards, without breaking eye contact. A ripple of suppressed laughter ran through the showroom staff. A few nearby customers turned, curious at the disruption. His face flushed briefly, but he said nothing. Quietly, he pivoted on his heel and walked out of the showroom, his shoulders straight, his expression unreadable. The next morning, Boston's skyline was still gray, with dawn mist when a silvery Rolls-Royce Phantom glided into the dealership's private lot. Early sunlight streamed through the glass walls of Boston Luxury Motors, turning the showroom into a cathedral of opulence. Inside, the same staff who had chuckled the day before froze mid-pour of coffee, murmurs dying on their lips. The rear coach door of the Phantom opened with a soft click. The man who had been turned away stepped out, wearing the same jeans and crisp white t-shirt, his dark hair pulled back into a neat braid. No jewelry distracted from his calm authority. He wasn't there to make a statement. He was the statement. Blake Thompson straightened his navy suit, confusion etched on his face. But before he could greet him, his junior salesman, Danielle, approached with practiced politeness. Clipboard in hand, Danielle said, "Good morning, sir. I'm Danielle. How may I assist you today?" He offered a faint smile and nodded toward the elevated platform. "I'm interested in the midnight blue coupe up there." In that instant, Blake realized he had underestimated him. But Danielle moved smoothly forward, unlocking a new chapter for both of them and for Boston Luxury Motors. Danielle led him across the gleaming floor, each polished tile echoing their footsteps. Blake hovered at the edge of the showroom, arms folded, uncertainty darkening his posture. As they reached the raised platform, the midnight blue McLaren Azure sat like a jewel beneath focused lights. Its paint caught every beam and refracted it into deep cobalt highlights. "This is the limited edition Azure," Danielle explained, voice steady. "Only 15 were made worldwide. Exclusive appointments only." She tapped the touchscreen panel at the platform's base, and the car's display lit up with detailed specifications. He examined the curves, the low aerodynamic silhouette, the seamlessly integrated vents, the signature dihedral doors. "Tell me about the engine," he said softly. Danielle smiled. "V12 twin-turbocharged, 600 horsepower. 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. She gestured to the cockpit. "Shall I open the door?" He nodded. Danielle released the latch. The door rose smoothly. Inside, the hand-stitched leather seats gleamed, accented with custom azure stitching matching the exterior. A subtle chrome inlay ran along the dash, and carbon fiber panels framed the center console. He ran his fingers over the leather and leaned forward to study the carbon fiber weave. "It feels as alive as it looks," he whispered. Behind him, staff watched in stunned silence. One technician lowered his coffee mug. Another checked his phone to confirm the car's price. Blake's face went pale when Danielle casually mentioned delivery to a Beacon Hill address. The whispering grew louder as Danielle closed the door and turned to him. "Shall we step outside for a closer inspection of performance features?" She guided him toward the showroom exit. As they moved, 2 security guards who had been stationed nearby straightened their posture. Blake realized they were here for more than a photo op. He swallowed and fell into step at a discreet distance. The morning air was cool as Danielle walked the man around the Azure, pointing out the adaptive suspension and carbon ceramic brakes. Her voice was confident, each explanation precise. He listened intently, his eyes tracing the wheel spokes, the engine cover, the aerodynamic vents. The display pad rotated slowly, giving every angle of the coupe its moment in the light. Suddenly, the service bay doors swung open, and a sleek woman in a tailored dark gray suit stepped onto the showroom floor. Time seemed to pause. The woman's gait was measured and authoritative. Blake, who had been hovering near the entrance, swallowed hard as recognition dawned on him. Julia Collins advanced without hesitation. She stopped a few feet from Danielle and her partner, offering him a soft kiss on the cheek. "Sorry I'm late," she said, voice rich and calm. "Had to wrap up a call with Geneva." He smiled, unhurried. "You're just in time." Blake's throat tightened. The room, once filled with murmurs of gossip, fell into reverent silence. Even the security guard stiffened. Danielle cleared her throat, then said, "Ms. Collins, may I show you some optional upgrades?" Julia's gaze shifted to Danielle, appreciative. "Please do." She placed a firm hand on Danielle's shoulder. "Thank you for your professionalism." A ripple of astonishment passed through the staff. Blake's stoic facade cracked when his phone buzzed. Again, client flagged. VIP, John Collins and spouse. Realization sank in like ice water. He stepped forward. "We'll take delivery at our Beacon Hill residence," he said, tone steady. "Please ensure it arrives showroom fresh, with 0 miles on the odometer." Danielle nodded, cheeks flushed but steady. "Absolutely, Mr. Collins." Julia produced a black folder and handed it to Danielle. Inside was a pre-approved cashier's check for the full amount. Danielle's hand trembled slightly as she accepted it. John added, "And please credit the full commission to Danielle." Behind them, Blake recovered his voice. "Miss Collins, Mr. Collins, I apologize for yesterday's misunderstanding." Julia lifted her gaze. "What misunderstanding, Mr. Thompson?" Blake hesitated. "I assumed—" Julia interrupted gently. "You judged by clothing instead of character." His words were soft but carried like thunder. Blake's face reddened. He found himself at a loss for reply. Danielle closed the folder and looked around. "Let's finalize the paperwork inside," she said. As the Collinses turned toward the showroom doors, staff bowed their heads in newfound respect. In that moment, the hierarchy within Boston Luxury Motors shifted irrevocably. By late morning, Blake Thompson sat alone in his glass-walled office, phone in hand. The message from corporate had arrived. "Video conference at 2 p.m. Explain." Yesterday's incident. His reflection in the tinted window looked unfamiliar, an emblem of misplaced pride. He pressed join and steeled himself for Eleanor Grant's stern face. Meanwhile, Danielle cleared the Azure's display pad and gathered her notes. She tapped her watch. Time to prepare the customer experience training materials. Today's agenda, presence over presentation, a module Danielle had drafted overnight. She rehearsed aloud in the empty showroom, voice firm. "We meet every guest with curiosity, not judgment." She paused when security guard James poked his head in. "Heard you might co-lead with Blake," James said quietly. Danielle nodded once. "I'll do my best." At 1:45 p.m., Blake found himself sitting beside Danielle in the conference room. Eleanor's face filled the screen. "Mr. Thompson," she began crisply, "describe the moment you realized your mistake." Blake swallowed and met Danielle's calm gaze. "When he confirmed his identity," Blake admitted. "I judged him by attire, not credentials." Eleanor nodded. Then turning to Danielle, she said, "You'll co-lead this initiative effective immediately." Back in the showroom, Julia and John paused by the service bay doors. A silver Mercedes sedan, dispatched by the Collins Foundation, idled outside. "Before we head to Beacon Hill," John said, "let's stop by the Outreach Center." Julia smiled at the children's drawings taped to the walls, crayon McLarens, scribbled thank you notes, sketches of the Azure. She placed a gentle hand on a 9-year-old's shoulder. "Keep dreaming," she whispered. Weeks passed, and subtle changes took root across Boston Luxury Motors. On a misty Tuesday morning, a young man in a faded hoodie hesitated at the showroom entrance. His eyes flicked nervously to the gleaming Rolls-Royce and Bentleys. Blake Thompson, now dressed less like a gatekeeper and more like a guide, spotted him and greeted him by name. He had remembered him from a community workshop list. He offered him a bottled water and genuine eye contact. "What brings you in today?" he asked. The man's shoulders relaxed. "I'm curious about your electric lineup," he said, nodding toward a polished Jaguar I-Pace. Blake smiled and called Danielle, who emerged with a tablet loaded with specs. Together they walked him through battery range, regenerative braking, and charging options, no assumptions, no judgments. As the man's confidence grew, he realized he wasn't merely window shopping. He was exploring real possibilities. That afternoon, John and Julia arrived unannounced for a service appointment. They stepped into the expanded outreach center within the dealership, a bright, open space where local students painted murals, celebrating speed and sustainability. Julia inspected the art and high-fived a teenager, demonstrating a drone prototype, funded by their foundation. John chatted with Blake about corporate partnerships, while Danielle exchanged ideas on refining the presence over presentation curriculum. The following morning, Boston Luxury Motors opened under a different rhythm. Velvet ropes lay removed, replaced by open space that welcomed every visitor. A fresh tray of water bottles and snacks greeted guests at the entrance, with a small placard reading, "All guests welcome." Danielle noticed it first and smiled. She was setting up a driving simulator in Bay 3 when Blake walked by, stopping to acknowledge a teenage girl lingering near a Bugatti Chiron. The girl looked hesitant in her worn sneakers. Blake crouched, offering a genuine invitation. "Want to take a virtual spin?" The girl's eyes lit up, and Danielle flipped the simulator on. For 10 minutes, she wasn't just imagining the drive, she was immersed in it, heart racing. As Blake stood back, he spotted a familiar figure watching from across the showroom. John Collins had returned unannounced. He stood near the Azure once more, his calm presence blending seamlessly with the new atmosphere. Julia joined him, slipping an arm around his shoulders. Without interrupting, they observed how judgment had been replaced by curiosity, how suspicion had given way to opportunity. When the demo ended, the girl hopped out of the cockpit, breathless with excitement. Blake greeted her with a high five and said, "That's how all great stories begin." The girl nodded, clutching the simulator's steering wheel as if it were a trophy. John and Julia approached, smiling. John rested a hand on Blake's shoulder. "Thank you for listening," he said softly. Blake blinked and nodded, his voice catching. "Thank you for teaching." As the Collinses turned to leave, a rain shower began, turning the city lights into shimmering reflections. They slipped into their Phantom and paused before driving away. John glanced back at the showroom one last time. The open doors seemed to welcome the next story, one yet unwritten, full of possibility.